I never expected to save a billionaire, but that moment changed my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun was bright, but the clouds of despair hung heavy in my heart. I was just trying to scrape by, living paycheck to paycheck, barely making it. I thought my life was just a series of endless disappointments. Then, the impossible happened. It was an ordinary day, yet my soul felt like it was caught in a storm. I was walking down the street when I heard the screeching tires, the horrified gasps of onlookers. My heart raced. I turned, and there he was, a sleek black car, its front end crushed against a lamppost, smoke swirling, twisting like angry spirits. The crowd murmured, a collective pulse of panic and curiosity. I pushed through, feeling the tremble in my hands, my stomach tightening. When I reached the car, I saw him slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from his temple. I didn't know him yet. Just a nameless face. But his expensive suit and designer watch marked him as someone important. The fear in my throat tasted metallic, like blood. I leaned in closer. His eyelids fluttered, revealing piercing blue eyes that seemed to search for answers. "Help," he whispered, barely audible, a sound that cut through the chaos. I felt a tug deep inside me, a warmth mixed with urgency. I couldn't just stand there. I yanked open the door, every moment felt like an eternity. The smell of burnt rubber and gasoline washed over me like a cold wave. His breath came in shallow gasps. "Stay with me," I urged, choking on the words. My voice was shaky, but deep inside, something ignited. I felt stronger than ever. I pressed my hands against the wound, the warmth of his blood soaking into my palm, hot and alive. I could feel his life slipping away with every heartbeat. Strange things began to happen. Trained voices began to reply to my call. Did someone call for help? I didn't know. Maybe the adrenaline was playing tricks on me. People moved around us, their faces blurred by panic, but my world narrowed to the two of us. He was gripping my wrist now, his fingers trembling. I could feel the weight of his spirit, fight mingling with fading resolve. "Promise," he slurred, "promise you'll find out who I am." In that moment, everything morphed into a blur of sirens, lights flickering, faces indistinguishable. But one thing was crystal clear: this wasn't just another day in my boring little life. Before I could process it, I was swept away. The emergency crew flooded in like warriors, ready to take him. They took him away in a flurry, an odyssey of desperation and hope. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding, chest tightening, dizzy with confusion. Who was he? Why did he need me? As I leaned against the cold metal of the lamppost, I knew one thing for sure: my life had changed irreversibly. Was this a chance, an opportunity? Or had I just signed my own fate into chaos? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were a haze of disbelief and uncertainty. I woke up each morning consumed by thoughts of the man I had saved, a stranger who had become the fulcrum of my reality. I returned to my routine, but nothing felt routine anymore. Instinctively, I scrolled through news articles that covered the accident. The enigmatic billionaire was a topic of much speculation, but his identity remained obscured beneath layers of media narratives. My life was fractured into before and after, and within this chasm, whispers of hope coiled around my thoughts like vines. I'd saved him somehow. Even in my state of confusion, I had reached out and touched a life at its most fragile moment. I caught snippets of his name in conversations. The name meant nothing to me, yet it echoed with a strange resonance. Jackson Hale, the man whose face I barely knew but whose pain I felt like a shard of glass lodged in my heart. One evening, I found myself wandering the streets where everything had started. Shadows danced in the fading light, and the sirens were a ghostly reminder of that chaotic day. I wondered obsessively about his recovery. Where was he? How badly was he hurt? Did he hold on to that promise I had made to him? Somehow, I felt tethered to him, even as I wandered aimlessly, trying to reclaim the ordinary life I thought I had wanted. A thought sparked in my mind, igniting a flicker of clarity. If he had requested my help, then perhaps I owed it to him to find out who he was, to bridge the abyss that now divided us. But how? Did the connection formed in that moment even mean anything to him? Would he remember my face? I had no answers, only questions that clawed at my peace. That I split my time between work and nights of restless searching online for any trace of him, but found little. It wasn't until a week later, when I received an unexpected phone call, that the world shifted again. The gravelly voice on the other end held an authority that made my heart hammer in my chest. "Miss Aaron Carter. This is Nathaniel Osborne." "In calling on behalf of Mr. Hale," the voice said, and for a moment, the world around me stopped. "He would like to speak with you." "Speak with me?" I stammered, struggling to comprehend the weight of his words. "But why? There's something he needs, something only you can provide," Nathaniel explained, a hint of urgency creeping into his tone. "He's recovering at a private facility, and it's critical he sees you. Will you come?" My heart raced at the gravity of the situation. "Yes. Of course, I'll come," I replied, feeling a strange mix of dread and thrill seize me. What could this man possibly need from me? I spent the rest of that day juggling anticipation and anxiety, my daily tasks slipping away under the vast shadow of what was to come. The drive to the facility was suffused with a simmering energy. I rehearsed conversations in my head, creating scenarios that only led me deeper into the well of uncertainty. When I finally arrived, a sprawling estate loomed before me, manicured lawns stretching endlessly, the epitome of wealth and isolation. I inhaled deeply, stepping inside with a mix of trepidation and exhilaration. Nathaniel awaited me at the entrance, his demeanor calm, but his eyes betrayed a flickering worry. "This way," he gestured, leading me down a gleaming hallway adorned with art that seemed to whisper secrets of lives lived in luxury. I nodded, the anticipation palpable, but beneath it lay an undercurrent of fear. What if I had misunderstood the connection? What if I had no place in his life? As we approached an unmarked door, Nathaniel turned to me, his expression shifting. "He's been asking for you. Be prepared, he's not the same man you met that day." My stomach twisted, a blend of anxiety and hope swelling within me. Nathaniel opened the door, and I stepped across the threshold to find Jackson in a hospital bed, pale and bandaged but undeniably alive. The weight of my heart eased slightly but was quickly replaced by a swell of emotion as our eyes locked. He raised a hand weakly, and I rushed to his side, the proximity igniting fragments of memory: his desperate plea, the warmth of his blood, the promise I had made. "Aaron," he croaked, the sound barely a whisper, yet loaded with unsaid words. "You came that I promised," I replied softly, my voice wavering. But what would he remember? Would he feel any of the connection I had carried with me through the dark days since the accident? Jackson's gaze shifted as if he was grasping for something lost in the cobwebs of his mind. Then, with great effort, he cleared his throat. "There's a reason I asked you to come, and it's more complicated than either of us can understand." Before I could gather my thoughts, the door burst open, startling us both. Nathaniel stormed in, his tone sharp and rattled. "Jackson, we need to talk about the implications of your decision." The gravity of that statement hung heavy in the air, filling the room with tension thicker than the sterile scent of antiseptic. I felt my heart race, a new kind of fear creeping in. What had I stepped into? What decision had Jackson made that could change everything? As I stood there, caught in the eye of a brewing storm, I realized this was only the beginning of an emotional journey that would test the very fabric of who I thought I was and who I would become. The unease in Jackson's expression pierced through the fragile cocoon of relief that had enveloped me upon entering the room. I searched his eyes, looking for reassurance, but found only shadows of confusion and apprehension. Nathaniel was framing the situation, but my heart was racing with thoughts of what Jackson's decision could entail. The tension wrapped around us, stifling except for the hum of the machines keeping him tethered to this world. Implications. I managed to whisper, my voice trembling in the narrow space between uncertainty and necessity. I was becoming acutely aware of how little I understood about Jackson's life, and the web of complications surrounding him. Nathaniel glanced at me, then back at Jackson, a flicker of something indecipherable flashing in his eyes that made me uneasy. Aaron, Jackson's recovery is just the beginning. There are legal matters to attend to, and well, your involvement may be more integral than you realize, he said, his voice steady in contrast to the whirlpool of emotions swirling around us. Integral how? I pressed, needing clarity as each second slipped away like sand through my fingers. Jackson grimaced as if bracing himself for the weight of revelation. I need your testimony about that day. Testimony. The word echoed ominously in the sterile room. My mind raced back to the fractured moments of the accident, the chaos, the urgency of that decision to help. But I don't know what more I can provide. I didn't see everything, Tu just acted. You saved his life, Nathaniel interjected, his tone softer now. But it's not just about the accident. There are people who believe this was no ordinary incident. There's a conspiracy surrounding your rescue. The word hung in the air, allowing the chilling implications to seep in. I searched Jackson's gaze for guidance, for some sign that this burden was one I could help shoulder, yet I found him lost in contemplation. That I didn't want to bring you into this, he murmured, a hint of regret lining his voice. But I can't face it alone. And now that I'm alive there are too many forces at play, too many who would want to manipulate what we both went through. Panic clenched my throat. You mean people might harm me if they find out I was involved? What did I step into? Nathaniel nodded, and the gravity of the situation sank deeper, pressing against my chest like a weight too great to bear. Until we discover the full scope of what's happening, you could be a target, Nathaniel said. But you have to understand, we can control this. We can protect you. Jackson's eyes bored into mine, a silent plea threading through whatever fragile bond we'd managed to form amid the chaos. Whatever happens, we'll face it together, he said, every syllable tinged with a resolve I was desperate to believe. But would I be able to manage the fear creeping like a shadow across the horizon of my existence? Just as I started to gather my thoughts, the beeping of the monitor changed rhythm. The alarm shrilled sharply, slicing through the tension like a knife. Nathaniel moved quickly, rushing to the side of the bed while my body froze, swallowed by dread. As he fiddled with buttons, the chaos of voices and sounds morphed into a haunting reminder of the fragility of life, of how one moment could chain us to the unpredictable. Jackson. I called out, desperation lacing my voice. Stay with me. His eyes fluttered, the world around us fading momentarily as though he was slipping into a dream I feared I might wake from and find him gone. The alarms blared incessantly, and I felt the room swirl as Nathaniel barked commands to the nurses outside the door. Panic flared up within me, a fractal of helplessness blooming with the possibility of losing him before I truly grasped the enormity of our connection. You fought to stay alive. Please, don't go now. Just as the nurses burst in, Jackson's eyes met mine one final time, so full of words unspoken, messages I couldn't decipher. They carried the weight of his secrets, his burdens, and yet embroidered within them, perhaps, a nascent hope. I took a step toward him, yearning to reach out, but he slipped away behind the curtain of chaos, the room erupting into a flurry of activity. As the medical team rushed to stabilize him, I stood immobilized in a sea of confusion and dread, trapped within the grip of uncertainty. The thought that I had ventured into this strange new world only for it to unravel before me churned within, pieces of my heart splintering like glass. Nathaniel's voice broke through my swirling thoughts, hand on my shoulder. Aaron, we need to decide what to do. Time is not on our side, but as I stood there, staring into the unexpected storm of emotions, all I could think was how close I had come to saving him, only to watch everything fall away, once again. As the alarm faded and the room quieted, a shocking realization struck me as if a lightning bolt had cleaved through the storm clouds. I wasn't just fighting for Jackson Hale's life, I was now fighting to keep my own truth and the impending darkness at bay. And in that moment of high anxiety, as I questioned if I truly had the strength to traverse this daunting maze, I sensed the flicker of a figure lurking in the doorway, a silhouette that sent chills down my spine. Everything shifted, and I was left holding onto the remnants of my shattered resolve, teetering on the brink of the unknown. The air remained charged with an unspoken tension as I watched the medical team work around Jackson's bed, their practiced movements expertly navigating the chaos. It felt like an ocean, the dark waves of dread crashing over me, threatening to pull me under. Yet, more than fear, I felt a gnawing sense of helplessness entwined with my growing affection for Hema connection that frightened me deeply. Suddenly, every sound amplified, machines beeped, nurses murmured urgent commands, and my own heart raced in a chaotic rhythm that resonated within the sterile white walls. I clutched the edge of a chair, the metal cool against my fingers, grounding me amidst the storm of emotions. Nathaniel remained nearby, his brow furrowed in concentration as he scanned the scene. But his tense frame reminded me of the looming shadows we now faced together. "Stay focused, Aaron," he urged softly, his eyes flickering toward me. "We have to think clearly." What was clear was that everything was spiraling. Jackson had become more than just a victim. I was tied to something far larger, something filled with danger hidden behind the veil of normalcy. As I fought to regain my composure, I remembered my responsibility. This wasn't just about Jackson's survival, but also about what and who might come after me. Could I handle the implications of becoming a key player in this insidious game? My thoughts drifted back to the figure in the doorway. It lingered like a bad memory, and I turned instinctively, half expecting to see someone emerge from the shadows. But there was nothing, just a vacant opening where once there seemed to be an unmistakable presence. That pervasive unease fluttered in the pit of my stomach. "Aaron," Nathaniel's voice broke through my reverie, and I turned my attention back to him. "We need to create a strategy. If we're going to keep you safe, we have to understand what they might want." His eyes hardened with resolve. "You need to stay close to Jackson, but remain cautious." "You're talking like there's a plan to keep this all wrapped up," I replied, the fear lacing my tone. "What if they're already involved? What if they've been watching us?" The look that passed between Nathaniel and the medical team ignited a deeper sense of foreboding in my chest. "Then we need to be strategic," Nathaniel urged. "I'll connect with my contacts, gather information. We can outsmart them." At that moment, wails from the corridor echoed a cacophony of distant voices, and I couldn't help but wonder if someone else was caught in their murky waters, as we were. "What if they're hunting for me?" I whispered, the words slipping from my lips unbidden. "Just stay with Jackson," he insisted. "He needs you more than ever, and so do you." The intensity of his gaze penetrated deeply, igniting a flicker of warmth in my fear-ridden heart. I took a breath, trying to steady myself. "Okay. I'll do my best." The medical team finally seemed to stabilize Jackson after what felt like a lifetime. I tilted my head quietly, searching for the strength to confront what lay ahead. The burden of his fate rested heavily on my shoulders, yet within that weight simmered a flicker of hope. What if I could truly aid him? It was a notion wrapped in uncertainty, riddled with hesitation. Hours turned into an agonizing wait, filled with breaths held and whispered prayers. Jackson began to show signs of waking, mumbling incoherently as I perched on the edge of his bed, tenuously grasping his hand. I was both terrified and touched by the warmth of his fingers, the consciousness behind those once vibrant eyes slowly flickering back to life. "Aaron?" His voice was gravelly, a whisper lost between breaths. The soft inflection of my name sent sparks of electricity coursing through me, awakening something dormant and yearning. It felt surreal when he turned his head slightly and met my gaze. "Are you still here?" "I'm here, Jackson." "I'm right here," I reassured, tears threatening to spill over. A faint smile graced his lips, delicate yet potent. When I woke up, it was like I had to fight not just the darkness, but everything pushing me deeper. "That darkness is still out there," I said, struggling not to let my fear break through the cracks in my resolve. Conversations raced through my mind, Nathaniel's warnings, the lurking presence I had sensed earlier. I focused on Jackson, grounding myself in his familiarity. "You aren't alone in this. We'll find our way through." But just as the words left my mouth, a distinct sound sliced through the air, a soft yet deliberate knock on the door. The nurses paused, glancing at one another, and I felt the quickening pulse of my heart echoing in my ears. Nathaniel stiffened beside me, and I turned towards the threshold, the figure re-emerging from the shadows, a stranger in a dark coat, wearing a mask that masked their intentions. "May I come in?" they asked, voice smooth but restless, like a predator testing the boundaries of its territory. Panic rocketed through me, my breath catching as the change in atmosphere solidified. Something unshakable washed over me, couldn't tell if it was dread or a foreboding thrill. But deep inside, I understood, the stakes had escalated. In that moment, the reality of our situation crystallized. The fight was far from over, and we had unwittingly drawn the attention of forces beyond our comprehension, pulling us deeper into a maze where the light of hope flickered tenuously, but brightly. The room stood still as the stranger's voice lingered in the air, twisted with an unsettling calmness that sent a shiver down my spine. Their presence loomed uninvited, an omen both insistent and foreboding. Nathaniel's body had tensed so dramatically that I could almost feel the crackle of energy radiating from him towards the masked figure. "Who are you?" I managed to utter, my voice trembling slightly, the biting edge of fear sharp against my words. "That I have information," the stranger replied, their eyes boring into me with an intensity that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. That I exchanged a quick glance with Nathaniel, whose features had hardened into a mask of protective determination. He stepped slightly in front of me, a barrier between danger and preservation. "You need to leave. This isn't the place for this conversation," he said, voice cold and commanding, like thunder preceding a storm, but the stranger only smirked beneath the mask, an expression that was both unsettling and infuriating. "I wouldn't be so hasty, Mr. Campbell. The game has shifted considerably. She is far more involved than you might realize." That a prickling sensation crawled across my skin, and I felt the weight of their gaze lock onto mine. The statement rocketed a sharp tension through my mind, a breathless realization that the shadows weren't just lurking around Jackson, they were watching me too. "What do you mean?" I asked, forcing steadiness into my tone even as panic tried to lace through. "The forces at play here are not simply after Jackson. They're after a legacy, a power tied to him. And you, Aaron, have made yourself quite important in this equation," the stranger teased, eyes gleaming with an unsettling mix of challenge and admiration. "What do you know about me?" I spat, anger sharp enough to force clarity through my fear. "You can't just waltz in here and throw around accusations." "True," the figure conceded, shrugging lightly, every movement deliberate. "But I can offer you a warning, an opportunity, if you're willing to listen. Because someone has taken an interest in you, and it won't end well if you stay clueless." The atmosphere tightened, my breath hitching in my throat as dread coiled around my heart. Behind me, Jackson shifted, his brow furrowing as he took in the scene unfolding. Two figures, locked in a battle I never wanted to be part of. I felt suffocated, hovering between trying to protect him and wanting desperately to understand the stakes at play. "Why should we trust you?" Nathaniel questioned, stepping deeper into a defensive stance. "That I am not asking for trust, Mr. Campbell," they replied smoothly, "but simply an audience. Trust is for fools, and it might lead you directly to your doom." A chill gripped me, a sharp pang causing my pulse to race and my stomach to churn. I looked into the stranger's eyes, searching for any sign of sincerity, but all I saw was cold calculation. "Life is precious, and so is information," they continued, almost serenely. "You, dear Aaron, hold the key, but you remain blissfully unaware of your own power." "That I don't want power," I insisted, shaking my head violently, as if to dispel their chilling words. "I want Jackson safe. I want him to wake up and be okay, and what if that goal lies within your grasp?" The stranger's tone shifted, now almost conspiratorial, cloaked in shadows that whispered promises of veiled truths. "You could save him, but at a cost. Everything has a price, and sometimes survival requires darker choices." That I felt as if the floor had been pulled from beneath me, leaving me suspended in a world defined by moral ambiguity. The thought itself was suffocating. Before I could respond, Jackson's voice broke through, strained and filled with fear. "Aaron, don't listen to them." His warning sent ripples of fear through me, a reminder that his well-being was paramount above anything the masked figure could suggest. But their words stuck to me like cobwebs, clinging and ensnaring. "Think carefully, Aaron. The protection you seek does not come from ignorance, the stranger warned, tilting their head slightly as they eyed Jackson. He's just a pawn in this very real chess game, a game much larger than either of you can comprehend. That I felt the claws of uncertainty digging deeper, intertwined with a glimmer of resolve. What do you want? I finally demanded. A connection, they replied, eyes glinting with mischief, as if the mere idea delighted them. Help us expose the players behind this facade, and perhaps you'll save not just Jackson but your own destiny as well. The room fell into silence, punctuated only by the rhythmic beeping of the machines surrounding Jackson, fabricating a discordant lullaby. I could feel Nathaniel's burning gaze upon me, weighing my next action as if the very fate of our intertwining paths depended on whether I chose to step forward or pull back. Get out, Jackson said, breathing heavily, but I sensed the struggle wafting beneath his bravado. We don't need anything from you. You will, Jackson. Mark my words. The masked figure offered a chilling smile as they turned to leave, pausing only at the door. What you wish to protect may soon become your greatest weakness. Remember this moment. And then they were gone, leaving behind a silence that radiated tension and confusion, the echo of their words reverberating through the hospital walls, planting seeds of doubt that blossomed with swift urgency. That I could feel the heat radiating off Nathaniel, his frustration palpable. Did you hear that? He asked, voice low and urgent, as he stepped closer. This isn't a game anymore, Aaron. You can't play with uncertainty. It will consume you. A moment stretched before me, filled with unanswered questions and dangerous possibilities. What am I supposed to do? My voice cracked, a whisper that danced in the air, trembling under the weight of realization. That's what we'll figure out, Nathaniel promised, fiercely protective. You're not alone, even if you feel like you're caught between two worlds. But I couldn't shake the vision of what lay ahead, the choices that would soon be forced upon us. As I helped Jackson settle back into a state of rest, my heart thudded heavily in my chest, weighted by uncertainty about the man I cared for. The battles we were about to face, an inscrutable future that loomed ominously just beyond the curtain, shielding us from the chaos beyond our little sanctuary. And as I leaned closer to Jackson, my heart fluttered with an inescapable dread. What if this was just the eye of the storm, a fleeting pause before everything shattered into pieces around us? The stillness in the hospital room hung thick after the masked figure vanished, leaving behind a chill that permeated my skin. I felt as if time itself had congealed, every heartbeat echoing louder than the last. I turned, unfocused, towards Jackson, the flicker of the machines keeping him alive, grounding me amidst the chaos of swirling emotions. His eyelids fluttered slightly, as though impervious to the storm. The fleeting hope that surged within me felt like a fragile wisp of smoke. The moment I reached to touch his hand, my pulse quickened. His skin felt cool against mine, and I leaned in, breath hitching. Jackson, please, come back to me, I whispered, wishing my words could infiltrate the depths of his unconscious state. Nathaniel stood nearby, visibly tense, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. The intensity of his gaze sent a wave of anxiety coursing through me, as if he were deciphering a riddle far too complex for my understanding. I could almost sense the unspoken thoughts plaguing him, the urgent need for clarity in a nebulous situation that seemed to spiral deeper into murkiness with every moment. Do you really think they were telling the truth? He asked, his voice low and edged with concern. That you play a role in this? A chill wrapped around my spine, the words the stranger had spoken echoed hauntingly in my mind. I shook my head fiercely, unable to accept the possibility. I can't be important in any of this, I stammered, a mix of desperation and denial fighting for dominance in my tone. I just want him to wake up. That may be true, but your connection to him runs deeper than you think. Whatever powers are at play, they target you because they see value in what you can offer, or what you may become, Nathaniel posited, the gravity in his voice thickening the atmosphere. Stop it. You're scaring me, I burst out, anger pouring forth to mask the fear. I don't care about power. All I care about is Jackson. Nathaniel's expression softened, sorrow filling the void where conflict had resided. I understand. Trust me, I do. But ignorance could cost us everything. He stepped forward, his eyes locking onto mine, a fierce determination igniting within his gaze. We need to stay alert and figure out how to untangle this. You can't face this alone, Aaron. I won't let you." Before I could respond, the beat of Jackson's heart fluctuated erratically, the monitor beeping sharply, piercing the heavy silence that enveloped us. Panic surged through me as I turned back to him, my heart racing. "No, no, no," I muttered, scrambling to push the button that alerted the nurses. "Jackson, please!" In a flurry, medical staff rushed in, the chaos sweeping me aside as they tended to him. I felt the panicked flutter of my heart synchronizing with the rising urgency of their movements, my mind racing with fear-fed questions. What if I lost him? What if everything fell apart now, when we had barely begun to understand the battle ahead? Amid the clamor, I took a step back, the world spinning around me, suffocating my resolve. I grasped Nathaniel's arm instinctively. I needed to ground myself. His steady presence provided a flicker of comfort amidst the storm. "We can't do this without him," I breathed, dread settling in the pit of my stomach. "I need him to fight, I need him to know the truth, it's going to be all right," he murmured, though I caught the edge of uncertainty in his tone, a reflection of the chaos around us. "We have time. We just need to hold on," but as the medical team stabilized Jackson, my heart sank. They rushed him away for further treatment, the pale look on his face imprinted in my mind a snapshot of vulnerability that threatened to fracture me completely. I refused to let go of the belief that he would return, that we still had hope amidst the uncertainty. Half an hour later, I sat on a plastic chair outside the room, knees pulled tightly to my chest, my breath shallow. The sterile smell of antiseptic mixed with my mounting anxiety, the weight of what had just occurred hanging stiflingly heavy in the air. Nathaniel paced nearby, phone buzzing in his hand, his energy crackling with unspent tension. "Aaron," he said softly, returning to my side, his tone urgent yet reassuring. "I think we should contact someone who might help us understand what's really happening. You shouldn't have to face this alone." That I met his gaze, searching for reassurance. But who? The question itself was a gaping void of vulnerability I didn't want to expose. "Someone who knows more about the people behind this game. Someone who can help protect you both," he said, his voice steady but increasingly laced with determination. Before I could respond, an urgent tone echoed through the hall, freezing the moment. A small voice broke through the stillness, a girl in tattered clothing, tears streaming down her cheeks as she rushed toward us. "Help. Please help," she gasped, glancing frantically between Nathaniel and me. "They're coming. I overheard them talking. They know where you are." My heart plummeted, the prospect of unseen dangers lurking nearby setting off alarm bells in my mind. I could see Nathaniel's expression shift, grim understanding donning a silent agreement that what we'd feared was moving perilously close to reality. "Who knows?" Nathaniel asked, stepping forward, protective instinct igniting within him. "That I don't know, but I heard them say they're coming for you, for her," the girl stammered, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't know why, but they said they need her, they need you." My breath hitched, a mixture of exhilaration and dread clashing violently within me. Was this the cost the stranger hinted at? Another storm breaching the hour where I had fought so hard to find sanctuary? "Aaron, we need to go, now," Nathaniel said tightly, his voice sharpening with urgency. He extended his hand toward me, a lifeline amidst the turmoil. I took it, the warmth of his grip grounding me, even as my heart pounded with uncertainty. The reality of our plight thundered against the walls of our fragile sanctuary. The battle was not just beginning, it had already begun, sweeping mercilessly toward us like a relentless tide, but in that moment, one thought crystallized in the depths of my racing mind, a revelation that ignited both fear and determination: I would not let them take my life apart without a fight. Together, we made our choice, our paths intertwining tightly as we sprinted down the corridor, desperate to avoid the darkness closing in. Yet, unbeknownst to us, in the shadows behind the veil of fluorescent lights, unseen eyes were monitoring our every move. As I glanced back, I caught a glimmer of dark figures slipping away, their presence like a ghost, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and in the grip of that chilling realization, my heart sank. There would be no escape from the truth waiting just beyond the horizon. The fluorescent lights buzzed above as we sprinted down the corridor, the girl's frantic sobs echoing behind us. I had never felt so alive and yet so helpless, the febrile mix of adrenaline and dread intertwining within me. The sterile walls of the hospital expanded and contracted in my peripheral vision, each step reverberating with the weight of our fleeting hope. "Keep going," Nathaniel urged, pulling me forward. I barely registered the hasty turns we took, my mind was consumed by a single thought: Jackson. The knowledge that menacing figures lurked so close yet felt intangible, like a distant storm I could only sense rather than see, left a chill settling in my bones. Eventually, we found a service stairwell, Nathaniel throwing the door open with urgency. "This way." "We can't risk being seen," he whispered, urgency sharpening his tone. The girl, who had introduced herself as Lily, followed closely, her breath hitching as she glanced over her shoulder, fear tangling her features. That we descended the stairs two at a time, our feet thundering against the metal steps as if we could outrun the menace that hunted us. In the midst of this chaos, a small flicker of warmth arose from my heart, a sensation born from the solidarity among us three, bound not only by fear but by an unlikely purpose. "Do you know who's coming for us?" I whispered to Lily as we finally reached the bottom. Her wide brown eyes reflected the glow of the emergency lights, and she shook her head, trembling. "That I just heard them, the whispers," she said, her voice a mix of vulnerability and resolve. "They're dangerous, Aaron. I've seen them." Her words trailed off, haunted, and I could see the far-off memories clouding her gaze. Nathaniel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, the gesture imbued with sincerity. "It's okay, Lily. You're safe now. We'll figure this out together." Despite the terror looming, his voice infused a sense of calm that eased the tension in my chest, if only slightly. His presence alongside me was grounding, but doubt creeping in threatened to unravel that brief calm. "Nathaniel, what if there's no way out?" I asked, the weariness beginning to seep into the back of my mind. "What if we're only delaying the inevitable?" "We can't think like that." His response was immediate, a fierce determination sparking in his eyes. "As long as we're together, there's always a chance. The enemy thrives on fear and isolation. But we won't give them that power." I inhaled deeply, willing the optimism to spread throughout my veins. "Right. Together," I echoed. "What do we need to do?" "First, we have to get out of here." "We need a plan," he replied. I could sense the gears turning in his mind. He always had that way of seeing the bigger picture even when chaos threatened to consume it. "Where do we go?" Lily interjected, piercing through the fog of indecision. "They could be everywhere. I can't let them catch me again." "There's a back exit, we can use it to reach the lot behind the hospital," Nathaniel suggested, his confidence igniting a flicker of determination within me. "But we need to stay quiet and avoid any confrontation." "Right," I whispered, stealing a brief glance at Lily. Her dirt-smudged face reminded me that hope could rise even from despair. "We can do this." As we pressed forward, my mind flooded with memories of Jackson's fragile face. I was terrified of losing him, but there was also a deep-seated belief that we weren't merely running from something, we were running toward possibility, toward the chance to reclaim their lives. We reached a door marked exit, anxiety tingling in my fingertips. I grasped the knob, ready to push it open, when a loud crash echoed above us. Instinctively, we all froze, the reverberation stealing the air from my lungs. "Go!" Nathaniel urged, shoving me toward the door with a push that felt like both an act of desperation and courage. I swung the door open, revealing the darkened alley behind the hospital, shadows stretching between the pools of pale light. As I stepped outside, the cold air met my skin like a sharp reminder of the reality beyond these walls. The night cloaked the world. Around us, a cloak woven with uncertainty and confusion. We descended the stairs into the alley, but before we could form a plan or breathe a sigh of relief, a figure emerged from the shadows. "Aaron, you don't have to do this," a familiar voice echoed through the stillness, sending terror racing down my spine. My breath caught in my throat. It was Aiden, Jackson's estranged brother, a man I had once thought was merely a distant shadow in Jackson's life. "Why are you here?" I gasped, caught between disbelief and realization. "What do you want?" His face was a mask of urgency, his expression driven by something I couldn't decipher. "You have to come with me. It's not safe here." They're coming for you, and I know how to protect you and Jackson. My heart pounded against my ribs, the hollow echo of fear and confusion making me question everything that had led us to this moment. What did Aiden know? Was he here to help, or had he become a pawn in a larger game I still didn't understand? I turned back to Nathaniel and Lily, uncertain of what lay ahead but aware that this wasn't merely a decision, it was a crossroads that could change everything. And as deception lurked nearby, one thing was clear: the battle for Jackson's life was merely a prelude to an even darker conflict that awaited, threatening to consume us all. The dim alley swallowed the light from the hospital behind us, and every shadow seemed to pulse with unseen threats. My heart raced as I fixated on Aiden's face, a blend of urgency and desperation. The last time I had seen him, he had vanished into the chaos of Jackson's world, a world marked by wealth and dangerous secrets. Now, he stood before me like a ghost, a link to the very man I was fighting to save. Aiden, you don't know what's going on, I exclaimed, the words tumbling out in frantic gasps. Nathaniel's grip on my arm tightened, a silent reminder of our fragile alliance. Those warm moments shared earlier felt light years away in the face of this unexpected confrontation. You need to trust me, Aiden replied, urgency pouring from him like a desperate plea for understanding. If you stay here, you're putting everyone at risk. I can help you get to Jackson. But we have to move now. Lily, trembling beside me, instinctively took a step backward, her fear palpable. You want us to go with him? Who even is he? Nathaniel's eyes darted back and forth between Aiden and me, assessing the situation. Aaron, we need to plan our next move carefully. Maybe we should, but before he could finish, Aiden took a step forward, his voice low and insistent. The longer you stand here, the tighter the noose gets around all of you. I swear I'm not your enemy. Just listen. A whirlwind of emotions flooded my mind, thoughts colliding like waves crashing against the shore. Aiden's protective instinct could be genuine, but I remembered Jackson's stories. His brother had always lived in the background, shying away from family ties to run his own life. Was it possible he had developed a sense of loyalty to Jackson while simultaneously embedding himself deeper into the darker currents of his world? Just tell me this, I said, my voice shaky yet resolute. What do you know about the people coming for us? Are you involved with them? Aiden hesitated, his brows furrowing as if wrestling with demons I couldn't begin to understand. I was close to some of the wrong people, but I've distanced myself. I'm not like them. I never wanted this life. Sounds convenient, Nathaniel interjected, his skepticism evident. We can't afford to trust someone just because they claim redemption. There's too much at stake. Then what do you propose? Aiden challenged, the fire igniting in his eyes. Stand here and wait for them to come. That's a surefire way to lose everything. The sirens of doubt echoed in my mind, but a flicker of hope ignited. Jackson was out there, somewhere, and the weight of my indecision felt unbearable. I edged a step closer to Aiden. Where is Jackson? I can't tell you everything, but I know he's in danger. And I know where to go. Aiden's desperation pierced through the air, heavy and tangible. If you follow me, I'll get you to him. We have to hurry. Trusting him feels like a gamble, Nathaniel whispered, eyes darting around the alley as if predators could surround us at any moment. It's a gamble we have to take. I felt an echo of hope bloom, Jack's face flashing in my mind, reminding me why I was standing here, heart racing like a drum. We're not leaving him behind. Fear and anxiety swirled within me as I nodded, hoping my decision wouldn't cost us everything. Okay, Aiden. We'll go with you. But you better not lead us into a trap. Just follow my lead, he said, relief momentarily softening his features. Without another glance at Nathaniel or Lily, Aiden turned, leading the way down the alley. We slipped into the shadows behind him, the weight of uncertainty heavy in the air. With each step, I could feel the world drawing tighter around us. The faster we moved, the louder the whispers of doubt grew in my mind. Do you trust him? Nathaniel's voice was low, almost conspiratorial as we walked. His eyes flicked to me, searching for reassurance. I'm trying, I admitted, the words trembling under the weight of my own fear. But what choice do we have? About halfway down the alley, I paused, catching a glimpse of Nathaniel's expression. Worry etched deeper lines across his handsome face. A sudden thought washed over me. What if trusting Aiden meant losing Nathaniel's loyalty in the process? But there was no time for reflection. Aiden turned a sharp corner ahead, leading us into a dimly lit side street. As we rounded the corner, I felt a shuddering jolt of dread ripple through me. A figure lurked at the edge of the dim light, a dark silhouette, and as it stepped into view, a chill raced down my spine. Why are you taking them with you, Aiden? The voice shot out like an arrow, as the figure emerged, his cold gaze locking onto us. They were a stranger, yet chillingly familiar. A hand clutched my chest as I froze. You know this person? I could barely breathe. And then, in a voice that echoed with the sound of shattered glass, the figure smiled. You'll wish you never chose this path, Aaron. Your journey is just beginning. In that moment, any semblance of hope vanished, devoured by the shadow looming over us. And with the reality setting in, one thought rang loud in my head: what had I just done? The figure lingered, a chilling definition of dread. Shadows danced around him, twisting his features into a mocking visage that felt both foreign and hauntingly familiar. My heart thudded in my chest, a visceral drum signaling the impending storm. Aiden, who is he? My voice came out weaker than I intended, lost amidst the rising tide of uncertainty. Get back! Aiden shouted, instinctively stepping in front of us, his demeanor shifting as if he had transformed into a protective barrier against the malevolence. You shouldn't be here, Zeke. Recognition slammed into me like a tidal wave. Zeke Jackson's former associate, a name whispered in fear, associated with the very darkness I sought to dismantle. But there was more. The trepidation ignited echoes of half-remembered conversations about loyalty and betrayal, and the haunting realization struck hard: this man had a hand in the deeper, sordid affairs of Jackson's empire. Nice to see you too, Aiden, Zeke drawled, savoring the moment as his eyes flickered to us. And you've brought friends. I wonder, do they know exactly what kind of trouble they're stepping into? You don't scare me, I managed, desperately clinging to the thin thread of courage I had left. We're not afraid of you. Zeke cocked an eyebrow, amusement warring with menace. You should be. He stepped closer, the air thickening with malice. You should know, Aaron, every choice has a consequence. And this little escapade of yours? It will cost you dearly. What do you want, Zeke? Aiden's voice was unsteady, but determination threaded through it. We're done playing your games. Zeke feigned innocence, a cruel smile spreading across his lips. This isn't a game. This is survival. Jackson's actions have consequences, and now you're caught in the crossfire with him. The gravity of his words struck me, churning my stomach. But he's innocent. He's done nothing wrong. Zeke's laughter sent a shiver down my spine. Innocence doesn't shield you from the truth, darling. There's a storm brewing, and everyone is forced to take sides. His gaze swept over Nathaniel and Lily, scrutinizing, calculating. I wonder who will make it out alive. Aiden clenched his fists, ready to spring forward, yet I held him back, my pulse racing as I assessed the precarious line we were treading. Zeke was dangerous, and we stood on the precipice of something far larger than I had ever anticipated. Let us pass, Zeke, I urged, my voice steadier now, fueled by a glimmer of resolve. We're not here to fight, we just want Jackson back. Cuteness isn't going to save you. But he'll consider it. He tilted his head, scrutiny still brewing in his eyes. In return for something worth my while. Aiden glanced at me, silent communication passing between us. What could we possibly offer this man that would satiate his insatiable greed? Words hung heavy in the air, each moment a strained breath that could shatter the fragile standoff. Aiden leered at Zeke. You think you can manipulate us? Well, find Jackson with or without your help. Bold words, Zeke said, stepping into the flickering light, revealing scars etched across his knuckles, secrets lying just beneath the surface. Tell me, what would you do if you found him? Fight the very tide that's pulling him under. You're facing forces far greater than you can comprehend. But hey, it'll bite. The tension danced like fireflies in darkness, threatening to ignite. "What's your offer?" I finally asked, my heartbeat thrumming in my ears. "I'll give you a chance," Zeke replied, voice laced with mockery. "Meet me at midnight tomorrow at the Atria. The underbelly of the city wants to have a word with you about Jackson. You'll have your answers. But be warned if you don't show, or if you bring any unexpected ally." She cast a pointed glance at Nathaniel. "I can't be responsible for what transpires next, and we shouldn't trust you anyway," Nathaniel interjected, brimming with disbelief. Zeke turned on his heel, an artful blend of casual arrogance and caution. "Trust is a fanciful thing, my friend, especially in our world." He glanced back over his shoulder, and a sly grin crept upon his lips. "Tick-tock, Aaron. Midnight awaits." As he faded into the shadows from which he had emerged, silence reigned, the weight of expectation hanging heavy among us. My mind raced, contemplating the implications of this ultimatum, a fork in the road. "We can't go, Aaron." Nathaniel's fervor ignited. "This is madness. Maybe madness is our only way out," I whispered, trembling under the enormity of this revelation. Aiden's protective presence beside me felt both secure and fragile, a double-edged sword of trust and doubt. Lily's eyes shimmered with fear, glancing from Aiden to Nathaniel, uncertain if we had stepped into a trap or a lifeline. "We stand to lose everything, Aaron. Do you understand that?" "I do," I whispered back, the anguish evident in my voice. "But what if this is the one chance to unlock the truth and save Jackson?" With the uncertainty still swirling in my gut, the heaviness of impending decisions loomed over us. Each heartbeat echoed the reality of the situation. Tomorrow would redefine everything, and the notion of sacrifice echoed louder than ever. As we turned to leave the alley, darkness closed in behind us like a heavy curtain, trailing whispers of inevitability as a chilling thought gripped my heart. What if showing up to Zeke could lead us closer to Jackson or push us deeper into a darkness we were ill-prepared to face? And with that looming uncertainty, the night felt irrevocably charged, each tick of the clock pulling us closer to midnight. The weight of the world pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating, as the sun dipped below the horizon. Aiden led us through the twisted streets, each step resonating with uncertainty. The moon loomed overhead, a silent witness to our decision, a choice echoing with both hope and fear. The air felt electric, charged with the potential for change. Every heartbeat echoed like a countdown, reminding me that soon, all questions would either shatter in despair or ignite in light. "That we have to stick together," Nathaniel whispered as he walked beside me, the tension in his shoulders palpable. "No matter what happens," that I nodded, but uncertainty twisted within me. Zeke's smirk lingered at the edges of my thoughts, a reminder of the darkness that was inching ever closer. As we approached the shadow of the Atria, dread and resolve collided in a fierce battle. A night cloaked in secrets rested just beyond the threshold. What lay inside those walls? What would it cost us? When Aiden finally led us to a secluded doorway at the back of the building, we paused. "This is where we part ways," he said, his voice steady yet tinged with anxiety. "I'll scout the area for you. Stay hidden until I give the signal. When the moment feels right, I'll guide you in." "Are you sure you can handle this?" Nathaniel challenged. I could sense the fractures in Aiden's facade, the concern lacing back and forth between them like a fraying rope. "That I am done hiding," Aiden replied, a fierce determination in his eyes. "I'll find a way to ensure Jackson is safe." As Aiden slipped into the shadows, I felt a flicker of anxiety burn in the pit of my stomach, the shadows asserting their grip on my heart. What if he doesn't come back? I turned to Nathaniel, my voice trembling. "He will," he replied, determination suffused within the layers of his words. "We can't afford to lose faith now. The truth is out there, and we need to be ready." His grip on my hand tightened, and I felt a flicker of strength weave through my veins, a reminder of the bond we'd forged in chaos. Minutes felt like hours as we waited, hidden behind crates and debris. My heart drummed loudly in my chest. I was caught between excitement and dread. It was an impossible mixture, one that made every breath feel like both an act of courage and folly. Then, unexpectedly, a rustle broke the silence. Aiden's head appeared around the corner, his expression set with urgency. "It's time," he said, quickly beckoning us forth. We moved in silence, the world blurring around us as I clung to Nathaniel's side, the air growing thick with tension. As we followed Aiden into the Atria's dimly lit underbelly, time seemed to distort, stretching tension taut like a tightrope straining under a weight it should never bear. The club vibrated with the pulse of thumping bass and muted whispers, a colorful yet duplicitous tapestry woven with sin and secrets. Everywhere, shadows danced, silhouettes entangled in pleasure and deceit, and I could almost taste the undercurrents of danger swirling through the air. The atmosphere crackled like electricity, the danger palpable. "We have to find Zeke," I breathed, trying to mask the fear creeping under my skin. "Let's move," Nathaniel urged, decisive and strong, as we navigated through the throngs of partygoers drowning in distractions. We were out of place, and I could feel the eyes around us watching, appraising, waiting, and then I spotted him, Zeke, leaning casually against the far wall, an impassive grin etched into his features. "There you are," he cooed, his voice smooth as silk, sinuous and sinister. The moment our eyes locked, shadows seemed to shift, a chasm dividing us in stark crimson light. "Why are we here?" I demanded, fighting the urge to retreat as I stepped closer, forcing confidence into my guise. "What do you want?" A flicker of amusement flashed in his gaze. "Isn't it lovely, this theater of desperate souls? You're drawn in, curious cat on the prowl, but your curiosity may lead to something darker than you anticipated." He stepped closer, the adrenaline sparking with unease. "Enough with the games," Nathaniel interjected, stepping forward as if trying to shield me from that chilling promise. "If you have something to tell us, do it." "Jackson's in trouble," Zeke replied, tilting his head as if gauging our reaction. The way he spoke twisted the knife deeper, dredging up emotions I was terrified to confront. "But the truth, my dear Aaron, is hidden beneath layers far more deadly than you've imagined. Will you dare to uncover it?" I hesitated, my heart pounding beneath the weight of possibility. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice steady despite the churning storm within. "Meet me tonight, away from the prying eyes. I'll show you the path to understanding. But beware, you will learn what is truly at stake." His eyes glimmered with a frenzied delight. "And once you learn, you can never go back. Why should I believe you?" I shot back, distrust sharpening the edges of every word. "Because," Zeke said, leaning closer, his voice a conspiratorial whisper, "only I have the key to unlock the truth behind your connection to Jackson Hale and the consequences looming overhead." Nathaniel shifted next to me, the subtle protection radiating as he searched my expression. I could feel the magnetic pull of desperation, the chance of hope teetering precariously on the edge of possibility. "Let's discuss it, then," I said, a wavering strength in my tone. "But no tricks, Zeke." "Well, take you at your word." "Very well," Zeke replied, a fleeting shadow of menace flashing across his face. "Tonight, then." Midnight awaits. Something dark settled around us, swirling through the air, threatening to unwind everything I thought I knew about loyalty, courage, and survival. But one thing grew clear: I was drawn into a web far larger than myself, and each decision would carve a path through the night, leaving footprints behind meant to be followed. As we pulled away from Zeke, doubt gnawed at me like a relentless specter. What lay ahead painted a dark path I hadn't asked to wander, but the choice had been made. Jackson's safety was paramount, and even if the truth demanded sacrifice, I was willing to pay the price. "Are you ready?" Nathaniel asked softly, drawing me into his orbit. There was no hesitation or retreat in his voice that I inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of uncertainty settle like a heavy cloak. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, and together, we stepped into the night, embracing the unknown and whatever it would bring. But deep within, I felt the flicker of something new, a conviction forged in fierce intent. No matter how dark the path turned, I refused to let fear dictate my steps, and as midnight approached, I clung to the belief that the truth would lead us to Jackson and that whatever lay ahead, we would still be standing together, illuminated within the shadows. For in that moment, I made a silent vow: I would find him. I would unravel the complexities of our entwined fates, and I would emerge transformed, out of the darkness, back into the light.